Rain hammers the glass so hard it feels like the sky is trying to break into the restaurant. Inside the lyric, everything glows: gold chandeliers, white tablecloths, crystal catching the light, while Neriah stands over table 7 with a silver teapot in her hand and poison in her apron pocket. Her fingers won't stop shaking. The cup in front of Madame Han waits, empty, porcelain white and perfect, like it has no idea what is coming. She tells her hand to move. It doesn't listen. The handle slicks under her grip, sweat sliding against polished metal. The room hums with low conversations and the clink of forks, but at this table, time feels pinned down. Madame Han's pearls rest neat against her collarbone as she looks out over the city, unaware that the woman standing by her elbow is deciding whether she lives or dies. Neriah feels it then, that weight, that stare, from the far corner of the room. Someone is watching her. She doesn't look up at first. If she does, she's scared her hand will jerk, she'll spill the tea, she'll give everything away. The teapot tips, steaming liquid rolling out in a dark ribbon, and the scent of jasmine curls up into the air, soft and sweet, wrong for a night like this. Her throat goes dry. The tiny glass vial digs into her hip through the thin fabric of her uniform, a sharp reminder with every breath. This is the moment. No more thinking. No more wishing for a different life. Either she follows through, or everything she's been trying to hold together snaps apart right here in the middle of marble floors and designer shoes. She finally lifts her eyes. In the corner, a man sits in the shadows, black suit, open collar, no tie. His posture is relaxed, but his gaze is locked on her hands like he already knows they're dangerous. Their eyes meet for half a second, and something cold slides down her spine. He doesn't look away. He doesn't smile. He just studies her, like she's a puzzle he's already close to solving. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Her pulse kicks hard against her ribs. Madame Han turns her head and offers a polite nod, the kind rich people give staff when they want to feel kind without really seeing them. Neriah forces her arm to steady, finishes pouring, and sets the teapot down. The cup sits full now, a small pool of warmth in a room that suddenly feels way too cold. She steps back, but her feet don't move far. It's like the floor is glue. She hears the wind outside, feels the air conditioning on the back of her neck, tastes metal on her tongue. Madame Han's fingers curl around the handle of the cup. Neriah's chest tightens as the porcelain lifts, slow and graceful, toward painted lips. Across the room, the man in the corner leans forward, just a little, just enough to show he hasn't missed a single second. Neriah's heart slams so loud she's sure someone at another table can hear it. This is the line she can't step back from. Once that cup touches Madame Han's mouth, nothing in her life will ever be normal again. She thinks one sentence as the cup reaches the woman's lips, the words punching through all the noise in her head. This is how she becomes a killer. Will you keep watching to see whether she lets that cup touch Madame Han's mouth, or do you think someone else will move first? 2 days earlier, the sound that scared Neriah most wasn't gunfire or thunder. It was a hospital phone ringing at the end of a double shift. She answered with her back pressed to the greasy tile wall of the diner kitchen, apron stained, feet aching, hoping for good news and knowing better. "Ms. Cole, it's Mercy General," the nurse said. "It's about Talia." The hallway smelled like old fries and bleach. A server pushed past her with a tray, muttering under his breath. Neriah pressed the phone tighter to her ear as the nurse explained that Talia's lungs were failing, that treatment could keep her stable, but the last bill was still unpaid, and the next one was already on its way. The number the woman mentioned might as well have been a different language. Her mind didn't rush to big thoughts about fate or fairness. It went straight to numbers. Rent. Past due notices. The little envelope from collections. 3 jobs that still weren't enough. She slid down the wall until she was half crouched beside a stack of plastic crates, the buzzing kitchen light flickering overhead, lemons piled in a crate beside her cutting board like they were mocking the word fresh. When she hung up, her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Her manager yelled for more plates. orders stacked on the line. The world didn't care that her sister was running out of air. She moved on autopilot, refilling coffee, dropping checks, forcing fake smiles until her cheeks hurt. By the time the diner closed, her body was nothing but nerves and empty pockets. That was when he appeared, leaning against the alley wall by the back door, half hidden under the yellow street lamp. Tall. Black hoodie dragged over his head despite the warm night, sleeves pushed up just enough to reveal a tattoo on his wrist, a coiled serpent with its mouth open, fangs bared. His accent was soft but carried a hint of somewhere far from Chicago, the vowels cut a little different. "You're Neriah," he said. Not a question. She froze, garbage bag in hand, fingers curling tight around the plastic. "We're closed." "I'm not here to eat." His eyes scanned her face, sharp and quick, like he was checking details against a file. "I'm here to give you a way out." Those words hooked into her chest. People like her didn't get way out offers, just pay now demands. She should have walked back inside. Called someone? Ignored him. But the image of Talia hooked up to machines wouldn't let her move. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small glass vial, cloudy liquid swirling inside. It caught the streetlight for a second, then disappeared as he closed his fist around it again. "There's a woman," he said. "Table 7 at the Lyric. You work there some nights, don't you?" He didn't wait for her answer. "She ruined lives and soul. Entire families. You pour this into her tea, and your sister's bills disappear. Every last one." Neriah's stomach turned. "I'm not." The word killer wouldn't leave her throat. He shrugged. "You're a big sister. That's all. Someone else chose this woman's fate a long time ago. You're just helping." His gaze dropped to the garbage bag in her hand. "You already live in other people's mess. This is just a different kind." He slid the vial into the pocket of her apron like they had already made a deal. Then he stepped back, melting into the dark edges of the alley. Inside, the lights went off one by one. The street grew quieter. Neriah stood there with the weight of that tiny bottle pulling at her uniform. All the warning signs flashed bright in her mind, but they were fighting against one picture: Talia lying still under harsh hospital lights, chest rising and falling with the help of machines. She didn't sleep that night. She counted ceiling cracks and overdue bills instead. By the time the sun came up, she had convinced herself that a woman who destroyed whole families somewhere across the ocean was already marked, that nothing she did could be worse than what had already been done. Now, back at the Lyric, as Madame Han's cup hovers inches from her lips, that alleyway offer wraps tight around Neriah's throat. If she stops this now, Talia's machines go quiet. If she lets it happen, someone else's mother might never go home. If you were in her shoes, standing there with everything on the line, which life would you choose to save? The cup keeps rising, slow and steady, but Neriah can't hear anything except the rush of her own pulse. The restaurant's soft piano music fades. The low murmur of conversations drops into a dull roar behind her ears. All she can focus on is the steam curling up from the tea and the man in the corner who refuses to look away. He moves first. One small gesture of his hand, and two men in dark suits step away from the walls like they've been waiting for this cue all night. They move through the room with quiet purpose, speaking low to the other staff, to guests, to the manager. Chairs scrape. Silverware clicks against plates. Confused whispers rise as diners are guided toward the exit with polite urgency that still somehow feels non-negotiable. In less than a minute, the entire restaurant thins out like air leaving a room. Servers disappear behind swinging doors. The host stand stands empty. The only people left in the main dining area are Madame Han, Neriah, the man from the corner, and the two guards flanking the door. The Lyric suddenly feels less like a restaurant and more like a stage. Neriah stands dead center under a chandelier, while the man from the corner rises to his feet and steps into the light. He is younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, but there's nothing soft about him. His jawline is sharp, his hair swept back with careless precision, his watch the kind that costs more than a car. His eyes stay fixed on her, steady and unreadable, as he walks toward table 7. Every step sounds too loud on the marble floor. Rian, Madame Han says, surprise breaking through her calm. Why are you here without telling me? He doesn't answer her. He doesn't even look at her. He reaches the table and stops right at Neriah's side. She can smell his cologne, something clean with a hit of spice, and underneath it, the faint hint of rain carried in when the doors opened earlier. His gaze drops to the teacup in Madame Han's hand. Then to Neriah's trembling fingers still close to the saucer. He sees everything. The tremor. The way her shoulders are locked stiff. The sheen of sweat on her upper lip. The panic she's trying to swallow. Put it down, he says. For a second, Neriah doesn't know who he's talking to. Her or his mother. Madame Han hesitates, brows knitting. Rian, what? He finally looks at her, and whatever she sees in his face makes her stop mid-sentence. Slowly, she lowers the cup back to the saucer. The china clicks lightly against the plate. Neriah's knees almost buckle with relief. Then he reaches out, picks up the same cup, and lifts it toward his own mouth. The world tilts. What are you doing? Neriah's voice cracks out of her before she can bite it back. His eyes flick to her, pinning her in place. Up close, the intensity in them hits harder. There's no panic there. No fear. Just calculation, like he's already weighed all the outcomes. He doesn't answer. He brings the cup to his lips and drinks. The poison she poured, the choice she made, slides down his throat in one smooth swallow. The cup empties. He sets it back down with care, handle turned toward Neriah, like he's returning something that belongs to her. Her hand flies to her mouth. She expects him to choke. To fall. To gasp for air. But nothing happens. He stands there, breathing steady, gaze never leaving her face. A door bursts open. The guards drag someone in across the polished floor, shoes squeaking, body twisting as he tries to pull free. It's the man from the alley, hoodie gone, shirt half untucked, serpent tattoo bold on his wrist. He stops struggling when he sees Rian. Color drains from his face. Madame Han stares between them, confusion and dawning horror flickering across her features. Neriah can't move. She's too busy watching the man who just swallowed death look at her like she's the one who needs to explain herself. Her voice comes out in a whisper, raw and shaking. Why would you drink that? Rian leans in just enough that only she and his mother can hear him. For the first time, there's something almost human in his expression, curiosity tangled with something sharper. Because, he says calmly, I needed to know who owns your fear. If someone risked their own life like that right in front of you, would you feel more terrified of them, or more curious about what they really are? The serpent-wrist man drops to his knees when the guards shove him forward. His hands hit the floor, palms skidding on the smooth marble. One guard holds him by the back of his neck, forcing his head down. The other stands between him and the nearest exit like a locked door made of muscle and training. Rian steps back from the table, giving himself a small circle of space. The air in that space feels heavier, like everything that matters has been pulled into it. He glances at Neriah, then at the man on the floor. You picked the wrong girl, Rian says. The tattooed man's voice shakes. She said yes. She said desperate, Rian corrects. You heard what you wanted. Madame Han sits rigid in her chair, fingers tight around her napkin. Her gaze shifts from her son to the waitress who nearly ended her life. There's more than anger in her eyes. There's hurt. Confusion. A quiet kind of betrayal. Talk, Rian says to the man on the floor. The man swallows hard. It was Lee Dumin, he blurts. They said you'd come back for her. That your mother was a loose end. I did what they told me. We? Rian asks, voice staying almost gentle. I mean they. The man's words tumble. They gave me the vial. They said find someone close to her, someone broke. Said nobody would notice if a waitress disappeared after. The word disappeared hits Neriah like a punch. So that was the plan. Use her then erase her. She wasn't a partner. She was a fuse. Her legs wobble. She grabs the back of a nearby chair to steady herself. The edges of her vision blur for a second, then sharpen again on the serpent tattoo, the shaky hands, the fear that looks too much like her own in his eyes. I didn't know she was your mother, the man says. They just said table 7. Said it was justice. Said she ruined families? She did, Rian says quietly. That doesn't make you less of a coward. Neriah's throat burns. Words claw their way up before she can stop them. I did it, she blurts, voice cracking. I poured it. I took the deal. It wasn't just him. I knew what it was for. Madame Han looks at her fully now, truly seeing her for the first time. Not as staff. As threat. Why? Madame Han asks. The question is soft, but it cuts deep. Neriah's eyes fill, but no tears fall yet. She doesn't have the energy left to hold anything back. My sister, she says. She can't breathe without machines. They called me and said they were going to cut her off. I've been working every hour I can find, and it's still not enough. He found me in an alley and offered me a way to keep her alive. I told myself you were a monster I'd never meet again. I told myself your life had already been decided. The last word lands weak. She hears how it sounds, a stranger justifying murder because the numbers in her bank account are wrong. Silence folds over the table. The only sound is the rain against the windows and the faint rattle of the man's breathing on the floor. Rian studies Neriah with an intensity that makes her want to turn away and stand taller at the same time. He isn't surprised. He isn't shocked. He's measuring her. Madame Han's expression shifts. The pain in her eyes doesn't soften, but something else slips in around it, a weary understanding that comes from a life built on trades and hard bargains. You would do this, Madame Han says slowly. For your sister? Neriah nods. I thought if I didn't, she would die. Her voice falters. I thought one person for another was the only deal left. Madame Han's gaze drops to the empty cup, then back to Neriah. Would you have drunk it yourself for her? The question lands like a blow. Neriah sucks in air, chest tight. Would she have lifted that same cup to her own lips if it meant Talia breathed another day? The answer sits heavy in her gut, ugly and clear. Yes, she whispers. If that's what it took. Madame Han leans back in her chair, studying her son over the rim of her glasses. Rian doesn't look away from Neriah. His hand lifts a fraction, fingers making a small, sharp motion. The guards straighten. The serpent-wrist man flinches. Neriah's heart slams so hard it hurts. This is it. This is where he decides how much her answer is worth. One guard shifts his grip on the man's neck. The other steps closer to Neriah, his shadow falling over her shoes. Do you think Rian's next move will be mercy for the girl who almost killed his mother, or a lesson that proves nobody walks away from a deal like this? When Neriah wakes, the rain and marble floors are gone. Fluorescent light hums softly above her, steady and low. For a few seconds she thinks she's in the hospital with Talia, until she realizes there's no beeping machines, no antiseptic sting in the air. Instead, she smells fresh linen, faint citrus, something expensive she can't name. She is lying on a wide bed with white sheets that feel too soft to be real. The room around her is clean lines and glass, walls that look out over the city, floor-to-ceiling windows on one side, and on the other clear panels that show a sleek hallway beyond. No bars. No chains. Just transparency that leaves nowhere to hide. She pushes herself up slowly. Her head throbs, but her body feels intact. No bruises she can see. No blood. Her uniform has been changed for a plain gray t-shirt and soft black pants. Even her feet are in clean socks that aren't hers. There's a camera in the corner of the ceiling, small and black. A guard stands outside the glass wall, hands clasped in front of him, gaze straight ahead. He doesn't look at her, but she knows he's aware of every move she makes. She swings her legs over the side of the bed. The floor is warm under her toes, some kind of heated surface that feels more like luxury than mercy. She walks to the glass and presses her palm against it. It's cool. Solid. No door handle on her side. Am I in jail? She asks, voice rough. The guard doesn't answer. His jaw ticks once. The glass door slides open with a soft hiss that makes her jump. Rian walks in like he owns the air, hands in his pockets, suit jacket open over a black shirt. No tie again. No signs of poison. His skin isn't pale. His lips aren't blue. If anything, he looks sharper than he did at the Lyric, as if that night somehow cleared something in him instead of killing him. You're alive? She blurts. So are you, he says. You're welcome. She stares at him. You drank. Our family doesn't walk into traps without checking the angles. He cuts in. What was in that cup needed to be in my system long enough to tell my men what they were dealing with. They prepared for it. He shrugs lightly. And I have better doctors than most. Her stomach twists. So that's what power looks like. Being able to swallow something that should end you and treat it like an inconvenient test. Where am I? She asks. In my building. He glances around the room. Top floors. The word top lands heavy. This isn't some cheap apartment over a store. This is the kind of place you only see in shows and music videos. Is this a prison? She presses. Prison keeps you in a box and forgets about you, he says. This is protection. Protection from who? Neriah demands. You. He almost smiles. Almost. From the people who sent that man with the tattoo. Once they realize he failed, they'll start looking for the weak links they used. That includes you. She lets out a harsh laugh. So I'm safe as long as I stay trapped in your glass cage. He steps closer, stopping an arm's length away from her. Up close, she can see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the faint scar near his jaw that tells its own story. You can walk around this floor, he says. You can eat, shower, sleep. No one will touch you without my permission. You just can't leave yet. That's a nice way of saying I'm not free. She fires back. He nods once, not offended. You are not free. Not yet. But you're not dead either. That was not a guarantee last night. Silence stretches. She searches his face for some hint of what kind of man he is beyond the suits and guards. He doesn't look like a cartoon enemy. He looks like someone who has spent his whole life making choices most people never see. Why didn't you just hand me over to them? She asks. Use me as a message. He holds her gaze. Because you're more useful alive. And because my mother asked me to think before I acted. The thought that Madame Han spoke on her behalf sits strangely in Neriah's chest. He turns toward the door, then pauses and looks back at her. One more thing, he says. If I wanted you dead, you would never have seen this room. The door slides open again. He steps out, and it closes behind him with the same soft hiss. Neriah is left staring at her own reflection in the glass, small, tired, and caught between a world that tried to buy her and a world that just claimed her. Is she safer in the hands of the man who drinks poison like a test, or in the sights of the people who think she's only worth using once and wiping away? The first sound Neriah hears is the soft knock, 1, 2, 3 taps against glass that doesn't belong in any normal life. She looks up from the untouched breakfast on her tray and sees an older Korean woman standing just outside the sliding door, pearls bright against a simple silk blouse. Madame Han doesn't wait for an invite. The door opens, and she steps in like this is her home and Neriah is the guest. The guard stays outside, hands folded, eyes forward. Inside the room, the air feels tighter. Neriah stands, fingers brushing the seam of her borrowed pants, not sure if she should look the woman in the eye or stare at the floor. Last time they were this close, Neriah was holding a teapot full of death above her cup. Walk with me, Madame Han says. There's no please, but there's no bite either. Neriah follows her into a private sitting room connected to the glass cage. The space looks like a magazine picture. Soft gray couches, dark wood, fresh flowers on a low table. Floor-to-ceiling windows open onto the city, making everything outside feel small. Madame Han lowers herself into an armchair and motions to the seat across from her. Sit, Miss Cole. Neriah sits. Her hands knot together in her lap. She feels like a child in the principal's office, except this principal has connections that reach across oceans. You told my son the truth, Madame Han says. Most people do not do that when they are afraid. Neriah swallows. I didn't have the energy left to lie. A tiny smile tugs at the corner of Madame Han's mouth. Honesty born from exhaustion is still honesty. Her gaze drifts to the window, past the glass, to the city below. You covered my body with poison in your hand. Yet when bullets flew, you covered my body with your own. That is an interesting contradiction. The image flashes through Neriah's mind even though the attack hasn't happened yet, a strange echo her nerves are already writing. She shifts in her seat. I didn't cover you with anything, she says quietly. I almost took you away from your son. And then you put yourself in front of me when you thought someone else would do the same, Madame Han replies. Love can bend a person in both directions. Toward harm. Toward protection. Always toward risk. She leans forward, pearls catching the light. Tell me about your sister. Neriah hesitates. This woman was almost her target. Now she's asking about the only person she's ever truly had. Her name is Talia, Neriah says. She's 21. She loves loud music and ramen noodles. She texts me memes from the hospital bed at 3 in the morning just so I know she's still awake. Her voice softens without her permission. Her lungs don't work right. They say it's a long name. I just call it broken air. Madame Han listens, eyes steady. No interruption. No pity. Just a quiet focus that makes Neriah feel more seen than any customer ever has. When my husband was alive, Madame Han says, he believed sacrifice meant giving up other people for the sake of the family. I never agreed with that. Her fingers brush the pearls at her throat. I gave up my own comfort. My own wishes. Pieces of myself. But I did it by choice, not by force. She studies Neriah again. You were willing to give up your soul for your sister. That is a dangerous kind of love. But it is pure. Dangerous and pure. The combination sits heavy in the room. Madame Han stands, and Neriah does too, out of instinct. As they move toward the door, voices drift in from the hall. Low male tones, one of them Rian's, one rougher, sharper. Madame Han stops just before the glass and turns her head slightly, knowing her son can hear. If you kill her, she says calmly, you will kill the last soft part of yourself. The hallway goes silent. The word soft hangs between mother and son like a warning and a blessing. Neriah's heart pounds so hard she can feel it in her throat. She can't see Rian's expression from here, but she can feel his attention land on that room, on her, through the glass and distance. What do you think hurts more for a man like Rian, losing control, or hearing his own mother say he's one step away from losing the last human part of himself? If you're still here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next moves in this family are only getting more dangerous, and you don't want to miss the moment someone crosses a line they can't come back from. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you trust Madame Han after what almost happened, or do you think she's playing her own game? The slam of a hand against the table snaps through Rian's office like a gunshot. Min-suk Kang leans over the polished wood, jaw tight, eyes hot. Papers shake under his palm, contracts and reports that mean nothing compared to the words he's spitting now. She tried to kill your mother, Rian, Min-suk says. You bring her into our building? You protect her? That's not strategy. That's weakness. Rian sits back in his chair, fingers steepled. The city glows behind him through the glass wall, a grid of lights and streets that all lead back to his name. His face stays calm, but there's a hard line around his eyes. Weakness, Rian repeats. Is that what you think this is? What else do you call it? Min-suk's voice climbs. Lee Do-min sends a message, and instead of answering with fire, you bring the messenger into your home and tuck her behind glass. He scoffs. Your father would never. My father is dead. Rian cuts in, voice low but sharp. And I am not interested in copying his every mistake just because he made people afraid. The room goes quiet. A clock ticks somewhere, steady and too loud. Minsuk straightens, chest rising and falling. Fear kept us alive, he says. It kept them off our doorstep. You let this girl stay, and every rival from here to Busan will smell it. They'll say the Han family went soft. They'll test us. Again and again. Rian stands, slow and controlled. They are almost the same height, but the air changes when he steps around the desk and closes the distance. They can test me all they like, he says. But they will not dictate how I treat someone my mother has asked me to protect. Protect? Minsuk laughs once, humorless. She is a loaded gun that someone else placed in your house. And you're standing next to it with the safety off. Down the hall, Neriah feels the tension even with the walls between them. Guards move a little quicker. Radios crackle more often, short bursts of Korean and English trading status updates. Extra men take positions by the elevators. The entire top floor shifts into a quiet alert, like the building itself is holding its breath. She presses her palm to the glass and watches one of the security staff check a tablet, nod, then glance toward her room. He doesn't say anything, but his shoulders sit higher than they did this morning. Something has changed. She can feel it. Rian's voice drifts faintly down the corridor, low and firm. We will tighten security, he says. We will not rush into a move that gives Lee exactly what he wants. He wants chaos. He wants overreaction. He wants me to bleed the way my father did. I am not giving him that story. Minsuk's answer is harder to catch, but Neriah hears one word clear as day. Soft. Minutes later, Minsuk walks past her glass wall, phone already in his hand. His expression is a storm. He doesn't look at her, but his jaw flexes as he speaks in fast Korean, words clipped and urgent. The hair on the back of her neck stands up. That night, the building's mood tightens another notch. Extra cameras blink to life. A new team rotates onto the floor, their footsteps heavier, their eyes sharper. The sun sinks, and the city lights rise. From her bed, Neriah can see her own reflection in the window, small against the skyline. She tries to sleep. She can't. The air feels wrong. Her chest feels tight, not like a panic attack, more like instinct. Somewhere below, in a dark garage, Minsuk's voice echoes off concrete as he speaks into a burner phone, sharing coordinates he should never share. The words are short. The meaning is huge: a guarded floor, a glass room, a name that has become a target. Hours later, alarms scream through the quiet. Red lights flash in the hallway outside Neriah's room. The guard who's been a statue all day suddenly springs into motion, shouting into his radio. Neriah bolts upright as the first sharp crack of gunfire slices through the night. Then the impossible happens. A bullet tears through the glass wall of her room, sending a burst of shattered pieces across the floor. When those shots ring out and that first wall breaks, do you think Minsuk just signed his own death sentence? Or is this the moment he finally proves his point about fear and power? If you're locked in with Neriah right now, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss how this attack changes every rule in their world. Drop a comment. What would you do if the only protection you had was the same man whose enemies are now aiming at your room? The second bullet hits the far corner of the glass and explodes another shower of pieces across the floor. Neriah throws herself sideways, arms over her head, as alarms howl and the building shakes with the echo of shots. Her bare feet skid on broken shards. Pain slices into her skin, white-hot and sudden. The guard outside her door yells into his radio, then rushes in, grabbing her by the arm. Move! He snaps. Now! She doesn't argue. There's no time. He pulls her into the hallway, away from the broken wall, just as another shot rips through the space she was standing in a second ago. The sound burns into her ears. Smoke creeps into the air, sharp, chemical, wrong. The top floor that felt like a quiet cage now feels like a maze on fire. Doors slam. Boots pound against the floor. Men shout in two languages, calling positions, calling threats. Neriah's heart knocks against her ribs so hard it hurts, but her mind is suddenly, strangely clear. "Where's Madame Han?" she demands, breathless, as the guard steers her toward a side corridor. "In her suite," he says. "We're moving you both to." He doesn't finish. The overhead lights flicker, then cut. For a heartbeat, the hallway falls into darkness. Emergency lights wake up along the baseboards, washing everything in a low red glow that makes the walls look like they're pulsing. Gunfire pops again, closer now. Neriah can't tell where it's coming from, only that it's inside the building, not outside on the street. Inside with her. They round a corner and nearly collide with another guard dragging a small, shaking figure in a silk robe, Madame Han, hair loose around her shoulders, eyes sharper than her outfit suggests. "Take her to the safe room." The second guard barks, pushing Madame Han toward them. The first guard grabs for her, but a new burst of shots slams into the wall behind them, showering plaster and dust. All four of them duck. The hallway fills with the sting of burning material. "Change of route," the first guard says, coughing. "Stairs. Now." Neriah grabs Madame Han's hand without thinking. The older woman grips back, harder than Neriah expects, knuckles white. Together they run, feet slapping against the floor, breath tearing out of their lungs. They make it halfway to the stairwell when a shadow breaks away from a side hallway ahead, a figure with a gun raised, face half covered, eyes dark and locked on them. Time slows. The first guard dives forward, firing. The attacker fires back. The second guard shoves Madame Han and Neriah toward a side alcove, but there's nowhere to go, no real cover. Just a decorative console table and a painting askew on the wall. Instinct takes over. Neriah doesn't think about poison or glass cages or all the reasons she should run in the opposite direction. She throws herself over Madame Han, pushing the older woman down behind the thin cover of the console, wrapping her arms around her as if she can make her smaller. Heat sears across Neriah's side, pain so sharp it steals her breath. She doesn't know if the bullet hit her or just grazed her, only that something wet spreads under her shirt, and her vision sparks at the edges. "Stay down," she gasps into Madame Han's shoulder. Rian's men answer the attack with controlled bursts, moving as a well-trained unit, their shots coming from angles Neriah can't see. One by one, the invaders fall back, bodies hitting the floor out of her line of sight. She hears the thud of boots retreating toward the stairwell, the harsh curses in a language she doesn't understand. The building groans with the weight of smoke and fear. Neriah's hands shake as she keeps her body over Madame Han. Glass crunches under her knees. Her side throbs in waves, each pulse stronger than the last. Madame Han's hand finds hers and squeezes. "You should not have done that," Madame Han whispers. "Too late," Neriah manages, mouth dry. "Already did." The alarms finally start to fade, replaced by the sound of shouted orders and the distant wail of sirens growing louder outside. The emergency lights still glow red, but the gunfire stops. A different kind of noise takes over, boots searching, radios checking, voices confirming. "Neriah!" The shout cuts through everything. She lifts her head, dazed, as Rian appears at the far end of the corridor, suit jacket gone, shirt open at the collar, a streak of dust across his cheek. His eyes go straight to the two women on the floor. For the first time since she's seen him, his control cracks. Fear flashes bright and raw in his face. He drops to his knees beside them, one hand hovering over the blood on her shirt, the other steadying his mother. Neriah tries to focus on his words, but her vision blurs, colors smearing into each other. "Stay with me," Rian says, voice tight. "Stay awake." The hallway tilts. The red lights stretch into long lines. Madame Han's hand is still in hers, but Neriah can't feel her fingers anymore. The last thing she sees before the darkness pulls her under is Rian's face over her, jaw clenched, eyes burning, not like a man looking at a problem, but like a man looking at something he's terrified to lose. Right now, as Neriah slips under with blood on her hands for the second time in this story, do you believe this is the moment that finally forces Rian to choose between the old ways of his father and the new world he says he wants to build? If you need to know whether Neriah makes it out of this corridor alive, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did her choice to shield Madame Han change how you see her? And do you think it changed how Rian sees her too? Your take might inspire someone else watching this story. Minsuk runs, shoes slapping against the concrete of the underground parking lot, breath tearing in and out of his lungs. The garage is half dark, lit by long rows of flickering lights that leave more shadow than clarity. He fumbles keys in his hand, aiming for a black sedan that waits near the exit ramp. Going somewhere? Rian's voice cuts through the open space. Minsuk freezes. The keys slip from his fingers and clatter to the ground. Rian steps out from behind a concrete pillar, flanked by two men with their hands folded in front of them, suits immaculate despite the chaos upstairs. His shirt is still rumpled from the scramble to reach his mother and Neriah. There's a brown stain on his cuff where blood touched fabric. He doesn't look like he cares. You should be with your security team, Minsuk says, trying to find his former confidence. They need you upstairs. They needed me upstairs 15 minutes ago, Rian says. Now they need answers. Minsuk straightens, trying to pull himself back into the man who used to be Rian's right hand. I did what had to be done, he says. You were hesitating. Our enemies were laughing. I forced them to show their face. At my mother's door, Rian replies. His voice doesn't rise, but something in it chills the space. At the room where I put a girl who trusted me more than she should have. You did not force them to show their face. You handed them mine. They were coming either way, Minsuk says. At least this way we saw who is truly loyal. Who is willing to bleed. Rian's jaw tightens. You talk about loyalty while standing in a garage with your keys in your hand and your bag already in the trunk. Minsuk's eyes flick toward the car, then back to Rian. I know how this works, he says. I know what your father would have done. We both do, Rian says. That's why I had my men block the exits before you even got down here. In the distance, sirens echo, growing louder, bouncing off concrete walls. Blue and red lights strobe faintly at the ramp entrance where more vehicles are pulling in. You brought the police? Minsuk asks, disbelief cracking his voice. For you, Rian answers. Not for Lee's men. Those are already taken care of. You would hand me over to them? Minsuk spits. After everything I've done to build this with you? You did not build this with me, Rian says quietly. You built this with a dead man's rules and tried to force them onto my life. You say mercy is weakness. I say loyalty without conscience is rot. Minsuk laughs once, bitter. You think they will treat you any better because you handed them one of your own? You are living in a dream, Rian. They will come for you next. Maybe, Rian says. But if they do, it won't be because I let you turn my mother's home into a war zone and then pretended I didn't know whose hand lit the match. Police doors slam above them. Footsteps echo from the ramp. Rian nods to his men. They move forward, not rough, but firm, taking Minsuk by the arms. Minsuk jerks once, then stills. She'll die, you know, he says, last shot loaded with poison. That girl. People like us, we touch lives like hers, and they break. That's how it's always been. Rian steps closer, close enough that Minsuk can see every line on his face. If she dies, he says, voice low and steady, this new world dies with her. And I will still make sure you spend the rest of your life explaining to strangers in gray uniforms how you threw away everything we built for one stupid bet. The police reach them. Papers change hands. Rian doesn't look away as Minsuk is turned over, wrists bound. No shouting. No backroom punishment. Just a clean handoff that cuts a line between past and present. As the squad car door shuts on Minsuk, Rian lifts his head toward the ceiling of the garage, toward the floors above where sirens and monitors and hushed voices surround Neriah's bed. The question hits him harder than any bullet. What kind of man walks upstairs after this? A son still chained to his father's shadow, or a leader who just burned the old playbook in one night? If you've been following this war inside the Han family, Would you have turned Minsuk over, or would you have handled it in-house, like the old days? Tap subscribe and switch on notifications so you don't miss the final chapter of this story. Drop your answer in the comments. Your view on justice versus loyalty might be the one that makes someone think twice about what real power looks like. The beeping pulls Neriah back first. One steady tone, then another. A slow rhythm that tells her she's still here. She opens her eyes to white walls, soft light, and the clean, sharp smell of a hospital, the real kind this time, not the polished glass of Rian's world. Her side aches under the bandages. Every breath reminds her that something hot cut across her body and didn't finish the job. She turns her head and blinks. On the bedside table sits an envelope with a heavy seal embossed on the flap, a single letter, H. Her fingers tremble as she reaches for it. The paper is thick, the kind used for wedding invitations and rich people's secrets. Inside there's a check. She stares at the numbers for a long time, mouth dry. It's more money than she has ever seen in one place. Enough to clear every bill with Mercy General. Enough to breathe without counting pennies for the first time in years. No name on the signature line. Just that seal again. H. A nurse slips in to check her vitals, smiles when she sees Neriah awake. "Your sister's down the hall," she says. "Room 312. Treatment approved. Long-term plan in place. Someone must really love y'all." When the nurse leaves, Neriah lets herself cry, quiet tears that soak into the thin hospital pillow. Not because everything is fixed, but because for once, the ground under her doesn't feel like it's about to open up. Weeks later, the Lyric opens its doors again. The chandeliers still glow. The marble floors still shine. But something is different. Tucked into the small print on the menu, there's a line most diners won't notice. A note that a portion of every check goes into a fund for single mothers, caretakers, and workers barely holding on. On opening night, a new waitress named Jasmine wipes down table 7, adjusting glasses until they sit just right. The storm outside is gentler this time, just a light rain tapping at the windows. She straightens her black apron, takes a steadying breath, and walks toward an older Korean woman sitting alone at the table, pearls as neat as ever. "Good evening, ma'am," Jasmine says. "Can I pour you some tea?" "Please," Madam Han replies, voice warm. The scent of jasmine floats up as the tea fills the cup. Jasmine moves with the careful attention of someone who knows every tip matters. She sets the pot down and steps back. Madam Han takes a sip, eyes closing for a brief second as the heat curls through the air. When she opens them, she smiles, not at the room, but at some memory only she can see. "Tell Mr. Han," she says softly. "The tea here tastes better than ever." Jasmine hesitates. "Mr. Han?" Madam Han just takes another sip. "He's watching," she says. "Still protecting people who once thought hurting us was their only choice." Somewhere in the building, maybe in a private room, maybe behind a camera feed, maybe a continent away, Rian sees the numbers from the fund, the list of names it has helped. Single dads. Grandmothers raising grandchildren. Big sisters who were one bill away from an impossible decision. He doesn't step into the light. He doesn't need the credit. He just makes sure the account never runs dry. Neriah walks past the Lyric one evening on her way to a normal shift at a small cafe she now owns a piece of. She pauses across the street, hand resting on the strap of her bag. She knows he could be in there. She also knows he might not be. Either way, she understands something she didn't before, that power doesn't stop being dangerous just because it smiles. But it can choose what kind of mark it leaves. She adjusts her coat and keeps walking, Talia's latest music humming in her earbuds, the city open in front of them in a way it never was before. Power will always show what a person really is when all the easy choices are gone. But compassion, that stubborn, risky, inconvenient choice to see people as more than tools or threats, that's what decides who they become in the end. If this story hit you anywhere deep, if it made you think about what you'd risk for the people you love, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that might speak to you or someone you care about. Share your thoughts in the comments, What does real power mean to you now, and how can your own acts of compassion change someone's story? Your words might be the reason another viewer finds the courage to keep going.